How are you? Okay, so today we are looking at day 16. Hi, how are you? I'm so happy you're here. My internet is acting a little wonky, so forgive me if there is a lag. And if there is a lag, let me know. I am trying to pull up my notes, so it's kind of slow. But today, what we are going to be talking about is the danger of perfection in liberation work, right? As some of you may know, morning guys, the foundation of my work is built into those 15 pillars of supremacy culture. I have an infographic, an ebook um, available. I'm feeling better today, Michelle. Not 100%, but my plan is after I do this live, I don't think I have anything else plans because I'm trying to move things today. Is take some more Alka-Seltzer cold. Oh, I have my decolonization collaboration meeting where a bunch of us that do this work, we meet up and check in with each other. It's myself, Maisha T. Hill from Heal Your Way Forward, Ashani Umfuku from Anti-Racism School is in session, Keena Reed from Divesting from Whiteness and the Anti-Blackness Reader, the anti-racist educator, um, Shanae Kendall Jackson. I love. She's a polyamorous educator. Um, Off the top of my Yolanda from Parenting Decolonized. We try to meet up weekly and check in with each other. I look gorgeous. Thank you. Listen. So yesterday I like washed my hair and I just did like I found out about plopping a few years ago. And it works for me sometimes, but I'll tell you what, is it's better when I pull it up like to right here and I just like spin it around and do a little top knot. And then the curls are just giving life. So I just put a little bun and there we go. So I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So after that, I will take some Alka-Seltzer and go night night, you know? Uh, so thank you, Tiffany. Thank you. I feel pretty. You know what? Looking at myself here, thank you. You know what? You guys are just boosting me so much. Thank you. I feel really pretty too, which is a nice feeling considering I felt like kind of trash for the past few days. So thank you. I'm also drinking me tea, so that helps. All right. So let's get into it, right? Day 16, the danger of perfectionism in liberation work. Perfectionism is one of those 15 pillars of supremacy culture. Please go to the link in my bio right there where it says tools and resources on the Substack website and grab your infographic, right? Just like take it, print it out, hang it up. Maybe I could make some like little like wallet cards. I think that this is so helpful to help reframe, right? So we don't make these things personal, right? We recognize that it's a system we've been indoctrinated into. And when you can recognize it, name it, you can claim it, and you can kind of move through it easier. So, 3 points. One, perfectionism thrives on supremacy culture. We're going to get into that, right? Two, perfectionism is rooted in individualism, not collective healing. Three, embracing messiness is essential for progress. Yummy! Love this, right? I love breaking down this pillar because it is like an albatross for many of us, right? Like you just want to get it done right. Even myself, like, right? Like when I'm sitting here and I decided to do this 100 days, I was like, okay, do I have the lighting? Do I have the this? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to show up in my house. I still need some work done right there with the kids here. Sometimes I look gorgeous like today. Some days I don't. And that's going to be okay, right? Because this is not just about me. And this is not to knock those. Like there are amazing content creators that have Havix, that have like the lighting, the makeup and everything, but that's just not who I am as a person anyway, right? Like this is it. This is it. Got some lip gloss and that's pretty much it. So when we kind of dismantle that pillar very specifically in activism work and in community building, we're not doing the self-flagellating, right? Oh God, I'm so terrible. I fucked up. I made a mistake. It's like we're human. The other day I explained making a mistake like pooping. It's natural, right? We all poop one way or another. So we're all going to make mistakes, and that is going to be okay. And that is a beautiful truth to hold very specifically in community building. Oh, shout out to Rhonda, who yesterday asked an amazing question, and I posted a long form answer in the makeshift happen community. But it inspired me to bring back my Tuesday tips. So, yay! You will see those on my Insta. It's going to be tips on creating community, small, simple, bite size, right? Because this could be intense for some people, but it's like little bite size tips that you could use. So I want to thank Rhonda for that because that's that collective work, right? Like when one person, like iron sharpens iron, right? If they didn't ask, that wouldn't happen. I wouldn't have brought back Tuesday tips. So I want to appreciate that. Tiffany says perfectionism so hard for me. For everybody, friend. I had a couple ladies over yesterday organizing our local community group. I started after the election and was so proud I didn't freak out over my house. Didn't clean at all, actually. That was huge for me. Cat and dog hair sprinkled everywhere. And welcome to being fucking human, Tiffany, right? This is what liberation is about. It is about embracing the full breadth of humanity. Some days you will get, remember the other days I shared with you guys, like that laundry? Today, it's not a laundry day. So my house is fairly tidy. It's not perfect, but we're not tripping over baskets of laundry. Some days it'll be that way, some days won't. Some days I may be in a bonnet, some days I won't. That is just humanity, right? So I love that for you. I celebrate that for you. I hope you have so many more moments of releasing being perfect, right? Because when we do that, it's kind of like going now all into all the numbers. When we do that, when we could show up in that sort of way, we give permission to others to show up that way. That's that collective healing, right? Because if we're all out here trying to be Stepford wives, right? If nobody's familiar with that term, you can kind of look it up in the movie. We're going to perform that, right? But if you could just come over to my house and we're just here, we are, we're organizing, we're talking, we're gathering, we're commiserating, whatever that looks like. And you know what? I could come here and it's a little bit messy. It's a little bit normal. I'm like, I could settle into this normalcy, right? I don't have to feel like I have to be quote unquote on. So that is a beautiful thing. Michelle says, if we all waited until our hours was perfect, we'd never do anything. And that is honestly what supremacy culture wants, right? Like that is that individualism. That is that perfectionism. Because like Tiffany says underneath, it can be paralyzing. It's intended to be. The more we do this work of liberation, the more you do of dismantling, you will realize that this isn't happenstance, right? And the more we talk about it, right? Like my whole podcast of like, let's have the conversation was just that. Doesn't mean that people are going to come to agreement on every single thing. It just means let's have this conversation. Let's talk about things because the more we talk about it, the more you realize, oh, me too, you too. Oh, you also have this going on, and you feel this camaraderie, this human connection, right? Instead of us pretending everything is all oh so wonderful, life is good, oh fine, like that superficial conversation that like it's so weird to me when I'm watching it, right? And I'm like, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Everything's good. No, I'm terrible. Terrible. Today is a terrible day. If people ask me how I'm doing, I'm gonna give them the honest answer. And I'll ask them, right? Because like permission and consent, do you want like the superficial answer or do you want the honest answer? And sometimes people will be like, I don't got the space. Okay, well, can't complain. And if they do have a space, I'm like, well, let me tell you. So this morning I got up, it was late. The kids had to, I'm going to go into it, right? And then that gives them permission to rap back and forth with me. So let's get back into this. Perfectionism thrives on supremacy culture. Perfectionism is a pillar of supremacy culture that demands flawless execution and discourages risk taking or vulnerability. In liberation work, this can stifle creativity, growth, and authentic relationships by creating fear of failure. Um, like, I mean, we kind of are going over that, right? But as an example, many social movements have stalled due to a fear of public mistakes leading to burnout or stagnation. If you are waiting for the world to change, somebody text me to remind me to put that into this article. Is it Mar? Waiting on the world to change. Anyway, ADHD. I want that song in there. We cannot keep waiting on the world to change. We are the change makers every single one of us, right? You may not be able to get up here and do what I'm doing. I quite love, you know, chatting with people. And at first, I didn't. I did not like being live or on camera, right? Writing was my first place. That may not be the thing that you need to do. And that's fine. But you're a change maker because, you at your PTA meeting, right? It doesn't have to be grand. You don't have to wake up and become a fucking activist. At your PTA meeting, when you wake up and realize this is just more ways of policing poor people, you could turn around and say, hey, who's not at this table? Who's not at this PTA meeting? And then ask yourself why they're not at this PTA meeting. Maybe because it's held on a Monday at 11 a.m. and people have to work, right? So who's most impacted by the decisions of the PTA, right? The people that don't have the privilege of, not navigating capitalism in the same way as that middle management, right? Middle class America is the middle management of the poor in this pyramid scheme of whiteness. So, it starts with small incremental things. Just that simple. Who's not at this table? Why are they not represented? What's going on? That's a change maker. One little way. Well, hey, you know what? I think, oh my God, there is a parent in the conscious parenting group with Parenting Decolonized. And she said, I love that this came to me right now. I want to get the exact thing that she's doing, but the gist of what she's doing is she, though her children are not even in this district, that's a change maker, are impacted by these decisions, right? Because they are homeschool children. She sits in on the meetings because she has the ability to do so. And she takes notes on the meetings, right? Like she records some, this, and other thing, and then disseminates them. So everyone has equal access to the meeting notes. That's a change maker. We have that ability, right? Is it perfect? No. Is she waiting until she has like a stenographer? Is she only invested because her kids go to school? No. Right. And this is how we break down that perfectionism. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to begin somewhere, somehow. Right. Two, perfectionism is rooted in individualism, not collective healing. Perfectionism often focuses on individual success and appearances rather than collective learning and growth. When people aim for individual excellence at the expense of group progress, the work suffers, and so does the community. This is a huge thing in community building. This is a huge thing in all that we do, right? Like when like I use an example of parents with children, right? Like when your children are successful by definition through capitalism, right? Whether, they're college graduates, homeowners, pulling down X amount of dollars, all of a sudden that's part of your accomplishment, right? Like, oh, look at what I did. Instead of, what, maybe collectively we did that, right? Who made that possible? My eldest is a college graduate, 2 degrees, doing their thing, in graduate school. Amazing, right? And I was a teen mom with a GED. I shared that. But do you know how many people it took to be in play for them to have the ability to do that? Right? Like when they signed up for school, I could not help them navigate certain paperwork. I'm like, hey, look, I went to college, but like it was more like on a wing and a prayer, and I had to do all of the fucking paperwork myself, toting a fucking 3-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So like I didn't have the skills and the ability. And I went to some clients of mine and I'm like, here, both of you graduated. One, it's your alma mater, right? They went to Georgia State. Could you help them with that? Yes, right. Then there's advisors, then there's other people. I put out there that she's going to college and she's moving into the dorms. People flooded with gifts and like, here, prepare her. This It was a collective effort for her to be held to be able to do that, right? It is not my individual accomplishment. It's not even hers. It is a collective thing, right? Her accomplishment was staying focused. What I used to remind her of, I'm like, listen, all colleges, it just lets people know that you could show up. As long as you show up every single time that you need to, you're going to be fine. That's it. And she did that. That was her individual accomplishment, was consistently showing up in spite of anything that was going on. And that is something she should be proud of. However, getting somebody to that space was a collective effort of community, love, care, etc., etc. Make sense? Yes, yes, yes. Good. So now, do 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 do. Oh, let me give you another example because I put it down here. Community spaces where open feedback and learning from mistakes are normalized tend to foster resilience and sustained action. That butts and chairs. Yes. Um, that is super important, right? Like I posted in the Makeshift Happen group, I was like, do you guys want to move to school? The SKOOL app, because it allows me to have a calendar, right? So, like, here's what I'm doing. Maybe here's a workshop, whatever. Here's some classes. So, all of the courses and self paced courses I could put into that calendar and could take them as you want, yada, yada, yada. And somebody was like, I've not been here long enough to have an opinion. And I was like, all opinions matter. Like, every single one matters. Like, whether it's been a week, it's been 8 years, the group has been open 8 years. All 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 opinions matter because it's going to impact everyone, and as we are doing community building, that is important to recognize. And again, we could start that at home. All opinions matter. Like I said, now it may be absurd. I have a 5-year-old. So when I ask her certain things about the household thing, some shit is outlandish. It's like unicorns and everything. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate your input. I will think about getting unicorns as a farm pet. I think about that. See what's possible. Right. But like she's participating, she's recognizing and learning that her voice matters in her own communal space. Her voice matters in her home. And that is important, right? And then that's going to make her say, like, when she gets out in the world, like, no, oh no, my voice matters. Because it mattered when I was 5 and I wanted a fucking unicorn. And those weren't real, but my mother knew that my voice was real and my desires were real. So that is the community care aspect of it. Taylor said, save my kid's final term. Yes, with mental health crisis. Right. Like this is a need. We need the community to get through all of those spaces and places. Can't do it alone, right? Embracing messiness is essential for progress. It's an intentional pause. I want you to sit with that. Let's say it again. Embracing messiness is essential for progress. Inhale that. Hold that, know it to be true. Okay. Liberation work is inherently messy. It involves unlearning, making mistakes, and continuous learning. The obsession with getting it right can prevent necessary experimentation and prevent marginalized voices from sharing perspectives. As an example, movements that prioritize process over perfection often build deeper trust and longer lasting change because they value humanity over results. Now, in community building and in nation building and in advocacy spaces, very specifically when they are white led, this misses the mark every single time because you guys don't want to fuck it up, right? You don't want it to be messy. You want it in a cute little, bag and package with a bow on it and like, oh, I'm a yummy advocate, right? Like, I've said it before, you guys will make merch before you make a plan. And it's like, allow it to be messy. Allow people to question. Allow people to get it wrong, right? This happens a lot in white led spaces that are for anti racism, right? Like I said, it's very finger waggy. You didn't say, don't do that. It happens in my comment section all the time on Instagram, on TikTok, anywhere, right? Like I'll be saying something and there'll be somebody combating things, threads has happened just like last week. And then she wound up, like we had a conversation and hopefully she said she would come to these. Hopefully she did. And I was like, a white woman jumped in and she was like, oh, what you're doing here, and if you have a problem, like inbox me and I'll explain it to you. And I'm like, I'm fucking talking. Like in my life, I have never had a problem articulating what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and where I think you should shove your opinion. So why are you over talking me in my own space? And you are believing that you're a well-to-do white woman, right? This is the thing, I don't need that. I don't advocate for that. I don't need anyone speaking for me. I'm in my own space. I am speaking. So I addressed her. I said, listen, I see what you're doing here. I appreciate what you think you're doing here. But in my space, I allow people to confront me. I allow people to question me. I allow people to fuss with me. Right? Like we could do this. We can have an exchange. We can go back and forth, right? Because that is the process of unlearning. I don't want to tell you guys, hey, so this is what's going on. And these are the 15 pillars. And you're just like blindly saying yes. I want you to question. I want you to get curious about all of the things. Like, ooh, this should be fascinating. This should be an unraveling. This should be aha moments, paradigm shifts. And I want it to be that way. And if you don't question, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And trust that I have good enough boundaries that if you've gone to a place where I'm not willing to go any further, I'm like, I'm not going any further. I said what I had to say. Thank you for this engagement. I'm done because it seems like you don't actually want to do the work. It seems like you want to argue with me. And I don't argue with people very specifically online. I'm not going to argue with you. I'll discuss, I'll even debate, but I'm not about to go back and forth arguing with you. So you got to learn how that looks, right? And like, how do you replicate that in your own homes and spaces? I have an 8-year-old who questions every single fucking thing, and it kills my soul. Because I'm like, I just sometimes need you to do it, right? I just sometimes need you to do it. I need you to trust me. So we have that conversation over and over again. But what I love is that what it is developing within him is that if I don't understand, I can get clarification safely, right? If I don't like it, I could question it and be like, hey, so I was thinking maybe it could work this way, or this works better for me. That is what you open up in your community spaces. That's what you open up within yourself. That's what you open up within activism, right? Because if people can't ask you questions, again, you're leading a cult. You got to be wary of that, guys. You have to be wary. There should be shared, like in communal spaces, there is shared dialogue. I am not the end all be all of liberation work. That hubris is wild to me, right? This is not the only way to do liberation work, right? I may not even be your cup of tea, and I'm okay with that because I'm not trying to convince you of something, and I don't want to force you into anything. I am a huge person on consent, and it should be enthusiastic consent in all of the things, right? I want you happy to show up at 9:30. I want you happy to show up in community. I want you happy to be like, you know what? Hell yes. I want to do this work. That's how it should feel. Should not feel like, oh God, I gotta fucking do this because Des said so. And if I don't do it, I'm just a bad person. I mean, like, I remove yourself from these spaces. They're violent, right? And it's just more supremacy culture, right? Um, Part of like I have like 3 master classes that I'm gonna re-release. You have to recognize is like pedagogy of the oppressed is something that's very real. And sometimes when people get power, they don't know what to do with that amount of power. And that ego has to be checked, right? So in spaces that are white led for activism, as an example, is you have a bunch of people who historically have not had any power in their homes, right? I will 100% recognize how patriarchy impacts white bodied women, femmes. 100%. It's fucking terrible. Hate that you guys are going through that hell inside of those hierarchies. For my help on that, follow my friend Zawn Valines, Liberating Motherhood. She is amazing, and I do not usually recommend white feminists, but she's really doing the work in a major way, in a very aware sort of way, an inclusive sort of way. As in she does white feminism, but like she recognizes like black maternal issues, right? Like it's very intersectional. She's doing it in a good way. I like it. Anyway, I'll pop that into the article. But when you are talking about like a group of people that have historically not had power within their own homes, their voices were not heard within those spaces, all of a sudden they're told go teach your people, right? And they'll start their like, white fragility book clubs. And, and now Angela, like is a anti-racist educator and a DEIA fucking professional. And Ange is telling you how bad you are, how you're not listening, you're not doing the work, you're not doing it enough. And she is bringing all of those pillars, all of that perfectionism, all of that individualism to a community space because she's done the work and you haven't, and you're just not as good as her. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous to activism, it's dangerous to community building. And the same thing happens with us too. Historically, we have been marginalized and unheard. And now all of a sudden, you have a movement that says, shut up and listen to Black women. Yummy. This is amazing. So you have to learn how to be mindful and use discernment, right? And break down all of these things and allow people to be messy and not perfect and just human when you're showing up to community spaces and community works, right? I may say something that like does not rub you the right way. Ask me. Ask me. Ask me. Because if I said it and it wasn't like something like you understood, oh, okay, let me explain that, right? Again, I'm a very direct person, right? I say a lot of things that are activating, right? I tell white women consistently, I'm like, you're your men. You've been socialized, like, and that's, why would you say that? Because we know how patriarchy works. Well, you've been socialized around white men only for thousands of years. You guys this is like your first generation really even being allowed to date outside of white people. Calm down. That's just, you are your men. That's who you've been socialized around. That is just a fact, right? So you only understand power like him. You don't see how community works out here. You don't understand a matriarchal circle. You literally only, like I say, the patriarchy in pink, right? Because you want to have the same power he has. And what we're doing down here is we don't want nobody to have that because that still makes a hierarchy, doesn't it? We want to dismantle it so no one has that power over anybody else. Where you guys are having an internal battle of who's going to be more powerful over the entire majority, global majority, right? And it's like, no. Decolonization means letting go of all of the supremacy culture ideals, embracing something new, embracing something different, and liberation for all, right? Power with, not power over. So I understand that those things are going to be activating. Ask the question, get messy, get uncomfortable. And you may want to leave. You know what? I don't like that. I'm gonna go somewhere else, right? That's fine. Go where you feel comfortable. Just do the work. Just do the work. I may not be the person that you feel comfortable doing the work with. That's fine. All I ask is don't stop doing the work. Continue where you're comfortable, right? Because it takes layers and steps. That may go and you may feel like, okay, I went here. I think I'm ready for this one. I think I'm ready for that one, right? I'm not, again, the end all be all. And in community, you have to understand that, right? You have to recognize like people will come and go in your activism, in your spaces, right? Um, you may be forming these like community circles now. People will leave. That is not an indictment on you, but get curious. I wonder why. When people unsubscribe all the time. Some people that subscribed just last week, I email, hey, I'd love your feedback. Why did you unsubscribe? I would love to hear because your voice matters to the community and what I'm offering. Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. That's fine. But I'll give somebody the opportunity to have that conversation with me. And that is something that you could also do in community is to offer the opportunity, right? That also helps release that idea of perfectionism. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to keep all my subscribers. I'm not going to keep all the people that follow me. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe there'll be new ones, maybe there won't, but I'm going to keep doing the work. Hope that makes sense. So, as we are at the top of our half an hour, let's recap. Perfectionism thrives on supremacy culture, right? So that is something that we have to recognize is that when we're upholding perfectionism, when we don't allow ourselves the space to be human, to mess up, you are actually upholding a pillar of supremacy culture against yourself and then your community. Two, Perfectionism is rooted in individualism, not collective healing. We are so trying to break individualism. It is not healthy. It is doing nothing for us. We are isolated beyond comprehension, right? To the point that most of us are quite literally connected only through the internet instead of with our neighbors next door. And that is another next step to take, right? Get to know the people that live right around you. Because I love these connections, but realistically, if they drop the grid, what are you going to do? Right. And that is what I want you guys to get into. Right. I want you to say, you know what? Today I'm going to meet my neighbor. I think I'm going to do that. Right. Today I'm going to go to the community garden. I'm going to do that. Today, if there is not a community garden, I'm going to figure out how to start one. Like, those sorts of things, and start getting people old school flyers, right? There's Nextdoor app. Hey, I'm starting X, Y, and Z. Hey, I'm gonna do a barbecue. Hey, if you have chickens, I have some eggs. Would you like to come and get some and meet your neighbor once a week, right? There are so many different options. Um, Three, embracing messiness is essential for progress. All of that I just mentioned. So maybe the egg thing doesn't work out. Okay. What's your next stop? Don't let it stop you. That is what supremacy culture does. It really paralyzes us, right? It says, okay, I tried for 3 weeks to get people to gather. That didn't work. It's all over. I'm doing it wrong. No, you're still doing it. And that is the important part, right? You may not be doing it where it's appealing to other people, and that's okay. You know what? Do it anyway, right? Do what feels good to you. Do what feels good to your soul to try to make community connection. Well, you know what? I'm going to sit up here every day and I'm going to sit on my front porch with some eggs. Somebody will come and you may connect with one person. And that's what I'm going to do, right? Like I said, I have my little free pantry. I changed my little free library into a little free pantry. I just keep adding little things here and there. It took 2 weeks for somebody to come by. And I was sitting here and I was like, somebody got some food. I love that. They'll tell another person and they'll come and they'll come. You know, if you have a little free library, maybe inside your books, put a little note in there that says, hey, I'm Desiree. Nice to meet you. If you'd like to come back or you'd like to have a, like what kind of books do you have in there? Like, would you like to have a book club? Would you like to meet once a week and talk about some of the books? There are so many ways that we could do this, and it has to be messy. It has to be okay to not get it right because it's new. It's something new. And that is what we are doing here. The work of liberation is about building something new. It's a rebirth of something that once was, that was snatched away from us by supremacy culture, that we are now trying to rebuild. And it's okay if it's not perfect. That's it. That's the story, Morning Glory. Bye, Michelle. Bye, everybody else. Um, I look forward to this every day. So thank you guys, seriously, for showing up because there's really no me without you. Um, Share with people, let them know the work that we're doing because you guys are doing big, big work. May not seem like it, but I promise you, you are. Take care of yourself. Bye.